finally this morning, in one of Bill Maher's recent so-called new rules, he argued progressives tend to not recognize the progress being made on issues that have indeed seen major movement, like same-sex marriage.
Progressivophobia. That's the phrase coined by Steven Pinker to describe a brain disorder that strikes liberals and makes them incapable of recognizing progress. Before 2012, every time gay marriage was put before a state's voters, it lost. 35 times in a row. Now it's the law of the land in every state. Even half of Republicans are for it.
That issue, interestingly, and perhaps unexpectedly, has often defied predictable ideology. For instance, in 2008, Proposition 8, a California ballot proposition and a state constitutional amendment intended to ban same-sex marriage, was fueled in large part by blacks and Latinos who had also turned out in large numbers for Barack Obama. Obama had himself defined marriage as a, quote, the union between a man and a woman, and for nearly 2 years into his presidency said he wasn't prepared to reverse himself. It wasn't until 2012 that he changed his stance, 3 days after his Vice President Joe Biden famously forced the issue.
Look, I am Vice President of the United States of America. The President sets the policy. I am absolutely comfortable with the fact that men marrying men, women marrying women, and heterosexual men and women marrying women are entitled to the same exact rights, all the civil rights, all the civil liberties. And quite frankly, I don't see much of a distinction beyond that.
That was an amazing moment, and last year it was the Trump-appointed Justice Neil Gorsuch who provided the swing vote in one of the most sweeping LGBTQ rights rulings in Supreme Court history, protecting gay and transgender people from workplace discrimination. Let's bring in author and reporter Sasha Eisenberg. He teaches in the political science department at UCLA and is out now with the book, The Engagement, America's Quarter-Century Struggle Over Same-Sex Marriage. Also with us, New York Times reporter Jeremy Peters. Good to have you all.
Great to have you with us, Sasha. It really, it's remarkable how quickly things have changed. 2004, of course, same-sex marriage bans as ballot initiatives were used to help elect a Republican president and Republican candidates in 2004. We just talked about Barack Obama in 2008 saying as a Christian, marriage is between a man and a woman. And in 2012, finally reversing his course. And yet here we are 9 years after that, and Donald Trump's appointees to the Supreme Court are perhaps writing some of the most sweeping opinions ever on the issue of LGBTQ rights.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the remarkable things over the last 6 years, Joe, how little backlash there has been to the Supreme Court's landmark ruling in Obergefell in June 2015. I certainly expected that if you had somebody like Donald Trump, who was really just has an instinct for pitting Americans against one another, announce his candidacy for president the same month that you had a sweeping civil rights opinion delivered by the Supreme Court like that overturned state laws in a variety of red states, that you would see the type of backlash we saw to Brown v. Board and other sort of monumental decisions. And there just hasn't been that in the last 6 years.
Jeremy Peters is with us and has a question. Jeremy.
Sasha, great reporting, excellent book. I can't wait to finish it. And I wondered, you know, in your reporting of this long history of the gay marriage rights movement, to what extent did you find that money and campaign donations to individual state lawmakers when these laws were being debated about a decade ago was the real factor? versus the real human-to-human lobbying that went on in these legislatures, where you had gay rights activists going to state senators, state assemblymen, and showing them gay couples, gay families, and saying, "See, these are people just like you. They have dreams and aspirations and love for one another, just like you have for your wife." And I know that the activists said that that was very effective, but I do wonder if a little, greasing of the palm with campaign contributions was also a significant factor.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeremy. You covered this in Albany. I think they went hand in hand. Part of the ability to do lobbying was a professionalization of gay rights activism starting in the 1980s, and the ascendance of a group of gay donors, millionaires and billionaires working in secret for many years that helped raise marriage to the top of the gay rights agenda. And one of the things they were able to do was to go into states and change the way that they were fighting these ballot measures that Joe mentioned, and also running lobbying campaigns. And part of the shift that you see before 2012 was an ability to start focusing on putting gays and lesbians front and center in these campaigns, and trying to communicate to persuadable voters basically that gays and lesbians want to marry for the same reasons that straight people do.
Professor, this is Eddie Glaude. I want to ask you this question. There's often this kind of assumption.
Unlike you, I don't deserve the title professor, just a lecture.
There's often this assumption that the LGBT community is, by definition, because of their identity, progressive. But how do we think about the wide ideological spectrum that defines this community, and how it impacts the way in which gay marriage has become a part of the culture in this moment? That we have to think about the LGBT community as an ideologically diverse space.
So there were these active debates in the gay rights movement among lawyers, activists in the 1980s about whether marriage was even desirable. And there was a sort of liberationist wing, feminist wing of what we now call the LGBT rights movement that thought marriage would be counterproductive to the cause of gay liberation. Ironically, the thing that unites gay activists, officials, and I think the community writ large around marriage as an objective is that their opponents start to take it seriously. And so what happens in the mid-90s as the Defense of Marriage Act sort of begins to move to Congress is that gays and lesbians see that their opponents have made stopping them from marrying the top item on their agenda. And all of a sudden, people who had been opposed to marriage or thought it should be a low priority item realize that if our opponents are fighting so hard to stop us from getting this, we need to be on the other side of that battle.
All right. The new book is The Engagement, America's Quarter-Century Struggle Over Same-Sex Marriage. Sasha Eisenberg, thank you very much for being on the show, and congratulations on the book.